Ever feel like you're only kind of scratching the surface of your own potential? Like there's, this whole other level of thinking and feeling and achieving just waiting to be unlocked.
Hmm.
Well, today we're diving into this fascinating book that tackles just that. And
Okay.
it's called Your Mind and How to Use It
Okay.
by William Walker Atkinson. And get this, he wrote it way back in the early 1900s.
Wow.
I'm talking about a time when psychology was still like finding its footing as a field of study.
It's amazing how insightful Atkinson was for his time. What we're going to uncover together are these timeless concepts about the mind, ideas about consciousness, perception, and memory that are as relevant today as they were back then.
It's like a journey to the center of ourselves, wouldn't you say?
I agree with that. Yeah.
Atkinson, he starts by tackling a real head scratcher. Consciousness. He dives into the absolute mystery of how this collection of cells we call a brain can create thoughts, emotions, even this whole experience of being like me.
Right.
And he doesn't shy away from the fact that there's still so much we don't know about how consciousness actually works.
It's like trying to understand the workings of a supercomputer, but we're still figuring out light bulbs.
Yeah.
Atkinson compares the mind to a complex machine with all of these different faculties working together, like perception, memory, imagination, each playing a part. But the real question is, like, who's operating this machine? What is this self that experiences it all?
Oh, that's a great question. And it gets even wilder when he introduces the subconscious mind.
Hmm.
Atkinson describes this massive reservoir of thoughts and memories and impulses that we're not even aware of, like a hidden vault in the back of our minds where everything we've ever experienced is stored.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what's hiding in your subconscious, right?
And here's the kicker. Atkinson argues that this hidden part of us has a huge impact on our conscious thoughts, feelings, and actions. He even suggests that things we often attribute to like genius or bursts of creativity might actually be bubbling up from this subconscious wellspring.
Okay, that's both exciting and a little spooky. It's
Yeah.
like we're only really in control of the tip of the iceberg while this whole other mass is influencing things beneath the surface.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And speaking of influencing how we see the world, Atkinson then turns his attention to perception. The way we experience reality through our senses.
Yeah.
He argues that it's not just about passively taking in information, but that our perception actively shapes our understanding of the world and even influences our character.
And he uses this really interesting example. He points out that even people who encounter cows regularly often struggle to describe how a cow's ears are positioned relative to its horns.
It's true.
It's like we're seeing without truly observing, right? Like how often do we really stop and take in our surroundings with like full attention?
It's such a great point. And to illustrate this, Atkinson tells this fascinating story about the famous French magician Robert Houdin. Houdin trained himself to observe his environment so meticulously that he could walk past a shop window, take in the entire scene, and then later recall every single item in perfect detail.
Wow, talk about a superpower.
Yeah.
But I guess it proves that we can actually train ourselves to be more present, more aware.
Exactly. And here's the interesting part. Atkinson contrasts Houdin's almost like superhuman observational skills with a different kind of expert perception, the kind possessed by, say, a fashion expert who can recall every intricate detail of another person's outfit. It highlights how our interests and expertise shape what we notice and remember.
That's so true. I bet if we all took a moment to think about it, we could pinpoint those areas where our perception is like laser focused. What about you?
Yeah.
Have you ever met someone whose powers of observation were just off the charts?
Absolutely. And it's often their ability to connect seemingly unrelated details that makes them stand out.
Yeah.
You see patterns and make connections that others miss.
It's like their minds are weaving these intricate tapestries of information while the rest of us are still fumbling with the threads.
Yes.
This seamlessly leads us to another crucial aspect of the mind that Atkinson explores, memory.
Yeah.
He describes it as this vast storehouse of all our experiences, even the ones we think have vanished into thin air. According to Atkinson, memory serves two primary functions: retention, which is the act of holding on to those experiences and impressions, and reproduction, which is our ability to bring those memories back to the forefront of our minds.
And it's not just a passive storage system either. Atkinson, he highlights this fascinating case of a Johns Hopkins student who struggled to remember a lecture he found illogical.
Really?
The key takeaway here, the better we understand something, the easier it is to commit it to memory. Our
Mm.
minds crave meaning and connection to solidify those memories.
That makes so much sense. It's like our brains are saying, why bother remembering something that doesn't make sense? It reminds me of how much easier it is to learn a new language when you can actually immerse yourself in the culture and start using it in context.
Precisely. Atkinson then introduces the concept of the what he calls the law of association.
Hmm.
Have you ever noticed how a particular scent, sound, or even a random object can trigger a vivid memory,
Hmm?
seemingly out of nowhere?
Oh, absolutely. It happens to me all the time. The
Uh,
smell of freshly baked bread always takes me back to my grandmother's kitchen.
Exactly. That's the law of association in action.
Yeah.
Atkinson explains that our minds naturally create links between seemingly unrelated thoughts and feelings based on our past experiences. These associations, they form these intricate webs of connections in our minds where one thought can lead to another, triggering a cascade of memories and emotions. He shares vivid examples like the scent of mignonette triggering a specific memory, or a familiar tune instantly evoking a particular person or place.
It's like our brains are these master storytellers, constantly weaving together narratives from the threads of our experiences. Speaking of storytelling, I'm fascinated by Atkinson's take on imagination. He doesn't see it as some frivolous daydreaming activity, but as a crucial faculty of the intellect, just as important as logic and reason.
Absolutely. Atkinson, he believes that imagination is the bedrock of all higher mental processes, including problem-solving, creativity, and even ethical decision-making. He distinguishes between two primary forms of imagination, reproductive and constructive. Reproductive imagination is our ability to replay past experiences in our minds, like watching a mental replay of a memorable event.
Okay.
It's the foundation upon which our memories are built.
So if reproductive imagination is like hitting replay on our mental VCRs, then constructive imagination must be the record button, right? The ability to create something entirely new from those existing recordings.
Got it. Constructive imagination allows us to take those building blocks of past experiences, those memories and sensations, and combine them in new and novel ways. Think about mythical creatures like unicorns or dragons. They're not based on any single creature that exists in reality, yet we can easily picture them because our minds are able to blend familiar elements, a horse's body, a lion's mane, a serpent's tail, to create something fantastical.
That's a great way to put it. I love how even in our wildest fantasies, our minds are still drawing on those foundational experiences, those bits and pieces of reality that we then weave together to create something new.
And this brings us to one of Atkinson's most important points about imagination, the power of ideals.
Okay.
He argues that the images we hold in our minds, our aspirations, our role models, our visions of a better future have a profound influence on our character. He even echoes the age-old wisdom, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. If we dwell on negative thoughts, limitations, and low expectations, we're more likely to become those things. But if we focus on positive ideals, striving to embody them in our thoughts and actions, our character will be elevated accordingly.
It's like we're constantly sculpting our own identities with every thought, every daydream, every aspiration. It's a powerful reminder that we're not just passive bystanders in the creation of our own lives. We have the power to actively shape who we become through the power of our imaginations.
Precisely. And here's where Atkinson throws us a bit of a curveball.
Yeah.
He claims that, contrary to what many might believe, we're more often driven by our feelings than by pure intellect.
That's quite a statement. It's like a wake-up call to examine how much of our decision-making is actually driven by logic and reason versus those gut feelings and emotional impulses. Think we'd like to admit how often our emotions are really calling the shots.
It's definitely a question worth pondering. Atkinson makes a clear distinction between simple feelings, which are those immediate visceral responses to stimuli, and more complex emotions.
Yeah.
Emotions, they involve a higher level of cognitive processing, often influenced by memories, beliefs, and personal interpretations of events.
So while a feeling might be that instant ouch when you touch something hot, an emotion would be the anger or frustration that might follow, colored by past experiences of getting burned.
Exactly. And to highlight the subjective nature of feelings, Atkinson points out how the same exact sight, sound, or even spoken words can evoke drastically different feelings in different people. He even argues that the same person might react entirely differently to the same stimulus, depending on their mood, their mindset, or what's going on in their lives at that moment.
It's like our emotional responses are filtered through this unique lens of personal experiences and beliefs and even even subconscious programming.
Hmm.
It makes you wonder how much of what we perceive as objective reality is actually colored by our own internal landscapes.
It's a fascinating question, and it
Yeah.
speaks to the complexity of the human mind. But let's delve further into this interplay between our physical bodies and our emotional experiences. Atkinson observed a powerful connection between our physical expressions and the intensity of our emotions. He found that outwardly expressing an emotion through facial expressions, gestures, even our posture can actually amplify that emotion.
Wow.
Conversely, consciously suppressing those outward expressions can help to dampen the feeling.
That's so interesting. It reminds me of something I once heard about actors. They often talk about how they can access deep emotions simply by mimicking the physical gestures and expressions associated with those feelings. Have you ever noticed this in your own life? Like if you're feeling down but you force yourself to smile, do you ever find your mood actually lifting a bit?
It's a common experience, and it highlights the powerful mind-body connection. However, Atkinson also cautions against believing that strong emotional expression is always a good thing. He reminds us that unchecked emotions can sometimes be a sign of weakness.
That's a good point. It's like the old saying, don't let your emotions get the best of you.
Exactly. Atkinson uses a brilliant analogy to drive home this point. He compares uncontrolled emotions to a locomotive wasting all of its steam on the whistle, leaving it with no power to move forward. Just like that locomotive, when we expend all of our energy on emotional outbursts, we're left depleted and ineffective. True emotional mastery lies in learning to harness our feelings, not letting them run wild.
So it's about finding that delicate balance between acknowledging and expressing our emotions authentically while also cultivating the self-control to direct them in a way that serves our greater good. This brings us to another crucial aspect of the mind, the intellect. Atkinson breaks down the intellectual processes into this fascinating hierarchy, each building upon the previous one.
He begins with memory, which we've already touched upon, then moves to abstraction, the ability to extract general concepts from specific observations.
Okay.
For example, we can observe numerous red objects, apples, fire trucks, stop signs, all different in shape and size, and yet we're able to recognize the commonality of redness.
So abstraction is like our brain's way of creating mental shortcuts, recognizing those underlying patterns that connect seemingly disparate things.
Precisely. And then comes generalization, the process of applying those abstract concepts to new situations. So once we've grasped the concept of redness, we can easily apply it to a new red object we've never encountered before.
Yeah.
We don't have to relearn the concept of red with each new object we encounter.
It's like our minds are constantly building this incredible library of knowledge, categorizing and organizing information to make sense of the world. But Atkinson points out that even our best attempts at categorization can sometimes lead us astray.
Absolutely. He uses the classic example of classifying whales as fish because they live in the sea, even though biologically they're mammals.
Yeah.
It highlights how our existing knowledge base, while essential, can also limit our understanding if we're not careful.
It's a good reminder to stay curious, to keep questioning our assumptions, and to remain open to new information that might challenge our existing understanding of the world.
Exactly. And this leads us to the next level in Atkinson's hierarchy,
Mm.
judgment. Judgment is our ability to compare and evaluate ideas, making decisions about their validity, their usefulness, or even their ethical implications. It requires weighing evidence, considering different perspectives, and ultimately forming our own informed conclusions.
So if knowledge is power, then judgment must be the wisdom to use that power effectively. It's about moving beyond simply absorbing information and into the realm of critical thinking, where we can analyze, evaluate, and discern for ourselves.
Precisely. And this brings us to the pinnacle of intellectual processes, according to Atkinson. Reasoning.
Okay.
Reasoning is the engine of problem solving, the ability to use logic and evidence to connect ideas, draw conclusions, and ultimately navigate the complexities of the world around us.
It's like our internal compass, helping us to chart a course through the vast sea of information and make sound decisions.
Exactly. Atkinson distinguishes between two primary types of reasoning, inductive and deductive reasoning.
Mm.
Inductive reasoning involves moving from specific observations to more general conclusions.
Like noticing that every time we touch a hot stove, we get burned, and then concluding that hot stoves in general are best avoided.
Precisely. We're drawing upon our experiences to formulate broader principles.
Mm.
Deductive reasoning, on the other hand, takes the opposite approach. It starts with a general principle and applies it to specific situations.
So if we know that all dogs are mammals,
Right.
and we meet a golden retriever, we can deduce that the golden retriever must also be a mammal.
Exactly. We're using established truths to understand new information. Atkinson emphasizes the importance of employing both types of reasoning in conjunction. Inductive reasoning allows us to build our knowledge base through observation and experience, while deductive reasoning helps us to apply that knowledge to make sense of new situations and draw logical inferences.
It's like they're two sides of the same coin, both essential for effective problem solving and critical thinking.
Precisely. Now, when it comes to reasoning, Atkinson stresses the importance of being aware of logical fallacies, those sneaky errors in thinking that can lead us to inaccurate or misleading conclusions.
Oh, I know those all too well. Like the classic correlation causation fallacy, where we assume that just because two things happen at the same time, one must cause the other. For example, ice cream sales go up in the summer, and crime rates also increase during the summer. Therefore, ice cream causes crime.
That's a perfect example. Or the slippery slope fallacy, where we assume that one event will inevitably lead to a chain of increasingly negative outcomes, even when there's no logical connection.
Like saying if we allow people to marry whomever they love, regardless of gender, then the next thing you know, people will be marrying their pets.
Precisely. These fallacies highlight the importance of examining our reasoning carefully, being wary of biases and grounding our conclusions in sound logic and evidence.
It's like we need to be our own internal fact checkers,
Mhm.
always questioning our assumptions and making sure our thought processes hold up to scrutiny.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Atkinson provides some valuable advice for avoiding these pitfalls.
Okay.
Carefully examine the evidence. Don't jump to conclusions. Consider alternative explanations.
Mhm.
And be especially mindful of how emotions and personal biases might be coloring your judgment.
It's about cultivating that critical thinking muscle,
Mhm.
constantly flexing it to make sure we're not falling prey to faulty logic or mental shortcuts.
Exactly. And this leads us to what Atkinson considers the driving force of the mind, the will. He sees the will not as some mysterious innate power that we're either born with or not, but as a faculty that can be developed and strengthened through conscious effort, just like a muscle.
So we're not just at the mercy of our willpower or lack thereof. We can actually train it to be stronger, more resilient, more aligned with our goals.
Precisely. And Atkinson draws heavily on the work of William James, the pioneering American psychologist who saw habit formation as the key to developing a strong will. James argued that by repeatedly choosing to act in accordance with our desired goals, we create these beaten tracks in our minds, neural pathways that make it easier to resist temptation and stay the course.
It's like building a bridge to our goals, brick by brick, with each act of willpower reinforcing the structure, making it more likely we'll reach the other side.
Exactly. Atkinson, building on James's work, emphasizes the importance of starting strong when establishing a new habit or breaking an old one.
Okay.
He suggests launching into it with as much decisiveness and willpower as possible, creating that initial momentum that makes it easier to overcome inertia and stick with it even when faced with challenges.
It's like that initial burst of energy needed to get a rocket off the
Yeah.
ground. Once we're in motion, it takes less effort to maintain our trajectory.
Exactly. But just like maintaining that rocket's course requires constant adjustments, so too does building lasting change. Atkinson stresses the need for consistency, for allowing no exceptions that might weaken our resolve or create those backdoor pathways for old habits to sneak back in.
It's about being vigilant, guarding against those moments of weakness when our willpower might falter and reminding ourselves we embarked on this journey in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where James's famous quote comes in. Seize the very first possible opportunity to act on every resolution you make and on every emotional prompting you may experience in the direction of the habits you aspire to gain.
It's about striking while the iron is hot, translating those good intentions into immediate action before doubt, fear, or procrastination can creep in and sabotage our efforts.
Precisely. Atkinson, drawing on the wisdom of James and countless other thinkers and doers throughout history, reminds us that the will is a powerful force capable of overcoming obstacles, breaking bad habits, and achieving extraordinary things.
It's like that inner voice urging us onward, whispering, "You've got this. Keep going."
Absolutely. And he encourages us to feed that voice, to nurture our willpower, to make it the driving force behind a life lived with intention, purpose, and a resolute spirit.
You know, it's interesting how we often talk about wanting to be happy, but rarely stop to define what that actually means. It's like we assume it's this universally understood concept, but Atkinson points out that happiness can mean very different things to different people.
He dives into this fascinating exploration of happiness, starting with the simplest definition, the gratification of all our desires. Sounds enticing, right? But then he challenges us to consider whether true happiness might involve something more than just getting everything we want.
It's like that old saying, be careful what you wish for. Sometimes getting what we think we want doesn't actually lead to lasting fulfillment.
Exactly. And he even brings up the philosopher William Paley, who suggested that happiness is more about the balance of pleasure over pain. It's not about eliminating all unpleasant experiences because let's face it, that's impossible, but rather about cultivating a life where the good outweighs the bad.
It's a good reminder that life is full of contrasts, and experiencing those lows can actually make the highs even sweeter.
Absolutely. And speaking of contrasts, Atkinson also tackles the age-old debate about selfishness versus altruism. Are we ultimately driven by self-interest, or is there a genuine desire to help others woven into the fabric of human nature?
It's a question that philosophers have been grappling with for centuries.
And Atkinson doesn't shy away from the complexity. He argues that even seemingly selfless acts often bring us some form of satisfaction, whether it's the joy of giving, the feeling of making a difference, or even just the social recognition that comes with being generous. Like there's this feedback loop between our actions and our emotions where doing good often makes us feel good.
That makes sense. It's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It just suggests that maybe the line between selfishness and altruism isn't always so clear cut.
Exactly. Atkinson challenges us to consider that perhaps true altruism, in the purest sense, might not even exist. He proposes that even our most selfless acts might stem from a deeper desire to align ourselves with something larger than ourselves, something that brings a sense of meaning and purpose that transcends our individual needs.
That's a profound thought. It's like we're wired to seek out connection, not just with others, but with something that gives our lives a sense of purpose.
Precisely. And this ties into another interesting point Atkinson makes. He challenges the idea that pain and suffering are inherently virtuous, or that we should seek them out as a means to spiritual growth.
That's a refreshing perspective, especially in a world where we're often bombarded with messages about like embracing the grind or pushing through the pain to achieve success.
He argues that sacrifice and hardship are only truly valuable if they ultimately lead to greater happiness, either for ourselves or for others. Pain, he suggests, is more like nature's warning system, alerting us to something that needs to change, rather than a badge of honor to be worn with pride.
It's about recognizing the difference between challenges that help us grow and those that keep us stuck in unhealthy patterns. Atkinson even suggests that constantly seeking happiness directly might actually make it more elusive.
It's a bit paradoxical, isn't it? But the more we fixate on our own happiness, the more it can feel like something outside of ourselves, something we need to chase down and capture.
It's like trying to catch a butterfly. The harder you chase it, the further it flits away.
Atkinson suggests that instead of chasing happiness directly, we might find more lasting fulfillment by focusing on other worthy pursuits. developing our character, cultivating meaningful relationships, pursuing work that ignites our passions. He even quotes the author Arnold Bennett, who advocated for what he called organized happiness, the idea of consciously structuring our lives in a way that maximizes joy and minimizes unnecessary suffering.
That makes so much sense. It's about taking a proactive approach to happiness, designing our lives in a way that supports well-being rather than just hoping for the best.
Precisely. But Atkinson doesn't sugarcoat things. He acknowledges that even with the best intentions, pain and suffering are inevitable parts of life.
No one gets a free pass from the challenges of being human.
Exactly.
Ah.
And he emphasizes that true happiness doesn't lie in avoiding those experiences, but rather in learning how to cope with them, learn from them, and ultimately use them as fuel for growth.
It's about building resilience, that inner strength that allows us to weather the storms and come out stronger on the other side.
Now let's shift gears a bit and dive into Atkinson's exploration of the intellect, that part of us that thinks and analyzes and makes sense of the world.
Okay.
He presents a fascinating hierarchy of intellectual processes, each building upon the previous one.
He begins with memory, which we've already explored in depth, then moves on to abstraction, that remarkable ability to extract general concepts from specific observations. It's how we're able to look at 1,000 different types of chair, some big, some small, some made of wood, some made of metal, and still recognize them all as belonging to the category of chair. It's like our brains are these master pattern recognizers sifting through the noise of the world to identify those underlying similarities that connect seemingly disparate things.
Exactly. And once we've grasped those abstract concepts, we move on to generalization, the process of applying those concepts to new situations. So when we encounter a brand new type of chair we've never seen before, we don't have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
Our brains can say, this shares the essential characteristics of a chair, a seat, a back, legs. So it must also be a chair.
It's like those abstract concepts become these mental shortcuts, allowing us to navigate the world more efficiently without having to relearn everything from scratch each time we encounter something new.
Precisely. And from there, we move on to judgment, that critical faculty that allows us to compare and evaluate ideas, weighing their validity, their usefulness, and ultimately forming our own conclusions.
So judgment is where we move beyond simply absorbing information and into the realm of critical thinking, where we start to analyze, dissect, and form our own opinions.
Exactly. It's about asking questions like, does this information make sense? Is it consistent with what I already know? What are the potential implications of this idea?
It's about becoming active participants in the learning process, not just passive recipients of information. And finally, we arrive at the pinnacle of Atkinson's intellectual hierarchy. Reasoning. Reasoning is the engine of problem solving, the ability to connect ideas logically, draw inferences, and navigate the complexities of the world around us.
He distinguishes between two primary types of reasoning, inductive and deductive, which work in tandem to help us make sense of the world.
Yeah.
Inductive reasoning involves drawing general conclusions based on specific observations.
Like noticing that every time we eat a certain food, we get an upset stomach, and then concluding that we might have an intolerance to that food.
Exactly. We're using our experiences to formulate hypotheses about the world. Deductive reasoning, on the other hand, starts with a general principle and applies it to specific situations.
So if we know that all mammals are warm-blooded, and we learn that a dolphin is a mammal, we can deduce that dolphins must also be warm-blooded.
Precisely. We're using established truths to understand new information. Atkinson emphasizes the importance of being able to employ both types of reasoning effectively, as they also work hand in hand in our everyday lives.
It's like inductive reasoning helps us build our understanding of the world, while deductive reasoning helps us navigate that world more effectively.
Absolutely. But just as important as understanding these different types of reasoning is recognizing common logical fallacies, those errors in thinking that can trip us up and lead us to inaccurate or misleading conclusions.
We all have our blind spots, those mental shortcuts that can lead us astray if we're not we're not careful.
Exactly. Atkinson provides a fascinating breakdown of some of the most common fallacies, starting with the classic false cause fallacy, where we mistakenly assume that just because two things happen in sequence, the first must have caused the second.
It's like saying I wore my lucky socks and my team won the game, therefore my socks must have caused the victory.
Exactly. Just because two events are correlated doesn't mean one caused the other. Another common fallacy Atkinson points out is the straw man argument, where someone misrepresents their opponent's position in order to make it easier to attack.
That's a classic debate tactic. It's like arguing against a flimsy straw figure instead of engaging with the actual substance of your opponent's argument.
Exactly. It's a way of avoiding genuine intellectual discourse by oversimplifying or distorting the other person's viewpoint. Atkinson provides a number of other examples of logical fallacies, highlighting how easily we can be swayed by faulty reasoning if we're not careful.
It's like those optical illusions that play tricks on our eyes. Our minds are just as susceptible to illusions, to those mental shortcuts and biases that can distort our perception of reality.
Precisely. And that's why Atkinson stresses the importance of cultivating critical thinking skills, of constantly questioning our assumptions, examining the evidence, and being willing to revise our beliefs when presented with new information.
It's about approaching the world with a healthy dose of skepticism, not just accepting everything we hear or read at face value.
Exactly. He reminds us that knowledge is a journey, not a destination. There's always more to learn, more to explore, and more to discover. And that brings us to what Atkinson considers the driving force of the mind, the key to unlocking our full potential, the will.
Willpower, that elusive quality that seems to come so easily to some and feel like a constant uphill battle for others.
Exactly. But here's the good news. Atkinson, drawing upon the insights of William James and countless other thinkers and doers throughout history, argues that willpower isn't some fixed trait that we're either born with or not. It's a faculty that can be trained, strengthened, and mastered through conscious effort and practice.
So it's like a muscle that we can build up over time, just like we would strengthen our biceps or our quads at the gym.
Precisely. And just like with physical exercise, the key is consistency and gradual progression. Atkinson emphasizes the importance of starting small, of setting achievable goals that build upon each other, creating a sense of momentum and accomplishment that fuels further progress.
It's like those first few wobbly steps we take as babies. It's about celebrating those small victories, those moments of triumph over inertia that ultimately pave the way for bigger leaps forward.
Absolutely. And just as important as starting small is being kind to ourselves when we inevitably stumble or fall short of our own expectations. Atkinson reminds us that setbacks are a natural part of the learning process, opportunities to gather valuable data about our strengths and weaknesses. It's about approaching challenges with a spirit of curiosity and a willingness to adjust our approaches as needed.
It's about cultivating self-compassion alongside that willpower, recognizing that we're all works in progress, constantly evolving and striving to become the best versions of ourselves. Atkinson provides a number of practical tips for strengthening our willpower, drawing upon the wisdom of those who have mastered this essential faculty. One recurring theme is the importance of having a clear vision, a compelling why that fuels our determination.
Without a clear sense of purpose, it's easy to get sidetracked by distractions or discouraged by obstacles.
Yeah.
But when we're crystal clear about what we want and why we want it, our willpower has a much stronger foundation to stand upon.
It's like having that North Star guiding our journey, even when the seas get rough or the winds of change threaten to blow us off course.
And in those moments when our willpower inevitably wavers, Atkinson encourages us to tap into the power of positive self-talk, to replace those negative self-defeating thoughts with affirmations of our own strength and resilience.
It's about becoming our own cheerleaders, reminding ourselves of our past victories and our innate innate capacity for growth and transformation.
And just as a weightlifter gradually increases the weight they lift, Atkinson suggests we should look for opportunities to challenge ourselves, to step outside of our comfort zones and test the limits of our willpower.
It's about embracing those moments of discomfort, recognizing them as opportunities for growth and expansion. He reminds us that true strength is not about never feeling fear or doubt, but rather about feeling those emotions fully and choosing to act in spite of them.
And that brings us to one of the most fascinating aspects of willpower that Atkinson explores.
Yeah.
Its connection to the idea of satisfaction, even in those actions that seem purely selfless or altruistic. He argues that at the core of every decision, even those seemingly motivated by a desire to help others, lies a deeper drive to bring ourselves the greatest satisfaction, whether in the moment or in the long run, directly or indirectly, personally or through the happiness of those we care about.
It's like he's suggesting that even our most selfless acts ultimately stem from a desire to content our spirit, as he puts it. It's not necessarily about conscious calculation or seeking personal gain, but rather a recognition that our actions are always on some level driven by a desire to create a sense of inner harmony and well-being.
Exactly. And he doesn't present this as a cynical view of human nature, but rather as a more nuanced understanding of the complex interplay between our motivations, both conscious and subconscious. He's acknowledging that we always act in a way that feels on some level like the best course of action for us, even if those motives aren't always easy to articulate or categorize neatly as selfish or altruistic.
It's a reminder that our inner lives are far more complex than we often give them credit for.
Atkinson wraps up his exploration of the will with a powerful call to action. He challenges us to become active architects of our own minds, to cultivate our willpower with the same dedication and intentionality that we might bring to developing our physical bodies or our professional skills.
It's like Atkinson is handing us this incredible treasure map, guiding us through the labyrinth of the mind and showing us where all the hidden gems are buried. He provides us with practical tools and techniques for cultivating those essential faculties that lead to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
And what's so empowering about Atkinson's approach is that he emphasizes that this is a journey we can all embark upon. It's not about possessing some innate genius or superhuman willpower, but rather about cultivating those qualities within ourselves through conscious effort and practice.
It's about becoming active architects of our own minds, shaping our thoughts, our emotions, and ultimately our destinies. So as we wrap up this deep dive into your mind and how to use it, I'm curious, what are some of the key takeaways that resonated most strongly with you? What are some of the nuggets of wisdom that you're gonna carry with you from this exploration?
One of the most powerful concepts for me is Atkinson's emphasis on the interconnectedness of the mind's faculties. We often talk about things like perception, memory, imagination, and willpower as if they're separate compartments. But Atkinson shows us how intricately they're all intertwined. For example, we've seen how our perception shapes our memories, how our imagination influences our emotions, and how our willpower impacts our ability to act on our intentions.
It's like that saying, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Our minds are these incredible symphonies of interconnected processes, each playing a vital role in creating the richness and complexity of our inner lives.
Precisely. And just as a conductor guides an orchestra, we have the ability to become conscious conductors of our own minds, to cultivate those faculties that lead to greater well-being and to harmonize those disparate parts of ourselves into a more integrated and fulfilling whole.
So if our listeners were to choose just one of Atkinson's insights to focus on one area where they could start applying this knowledge to their own lives, what would you suggest?
That's a great question. It's like asking someone to choose their favorite star in the sky. Each insight offers its own unique brilliance. But if I had to choose just one, I think it would be Atkinson's emphasis on the power of conscious habit formation. We've talked about how habits are like those beaten tracks in our minds, those neural pathways that our thoughts and actions tend to follow automatically. Atkinson reminds us that we have the ability to consciously choose which paths we want to strengthen, which habits we want to cultivate, and ultimately which direction we want our lives to take.
It's like we're the gardeners of our own minds, choosing which seeds we want to plant, which weeds we want to pull, and ultimately which fruits we want to harvest.
Exactly. And Atkinson provides us with practical tools and techniques for doing just that, for breaking those old habits that no longer serve us, and for cultivating new ones that align with our values and aspirations. It's about recognizing that lasting change doesn't happen overnight. It requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to embrace the journey, even when we encounter setbacks or plateaus along the way.
It's about celebrating those small victories, those moments of triumph over inertia that ultimately pave the way for lasting transformation. Remember that inspiring quote from Ella Wheeler Wilcox that we touched on earlier. There is no chance, no destiny, no fate can circumvent or hinder or control the firm resolve of a determined soul.
Those words perfectly capture the empowering message at the heart of Atkinson's work. We are not simply puppets of circumstance and the mercy of our genes or our upbringing. We have the power within us to shape our own destinies, to cultivate the minds we want to have, and to create the lives we want to live. It all starts with that first step, that conscious choice to embark on the journey of self-mastery.
And Atkinson, he leaves us with one final thought-provoking question to ponder as we continue on that journey. He suggests that we always act in a way that we believe will ultimately bring us the greatest satisfaction, even when those actions seem self-sacrificing or driven by a desire to help others. Yeah. He argues that there's a deeper drive within us to align ourselves with something larger than ourselves, something that brings a sense of meaning and purpose that transcends our individual needs and desires. It's a question that has lingered in my mind long after finishing the book. Could it be that true happiness lies not just in pursuing our own individual well-being, but also in aligning our actions with something greater than ourselves, something that connects us to a deeper sense of purpose and meaning?
It's a question worth pondering, and I think it speaks to the enduring power of Atkinson's work over a century after he first penned these words. He's still inviting us to delve deeper into the mysteries of our own minds, to explore the vast potential that lies dormant within us, and to never stop asking those big important questions about what it means to live a truly fulfilling and meaningful life.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. We hope this deep dive into the incredible workings of your mind, guided by William Walker Atkinson's Your Mind and How to Use It, has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to explore the incredible potential that lies within each and every one of us. Until next time, keep those minds engaged, keep those questions coming, and keep striving to unlock the full potential of your extraordinary minds.